Good morning, this is Morten from English. Today we're going to talk about the two words push marketing and pull marketing. And I think both are equally important to learn from, and both of them are really easy to understand. Pull marketing is the marketing that you have to look for. And then you can ask, why should I look for marketing? I will get back to about that in a second. And push marketing is the typical advertising that you almost cannot avoid seeing. If you are still watching Flow TV, you know that sometimes you have TV channels that are interrupted by advertising. That's push marketing. That's maybe the time where you go and brew your coffee or do something else. It might also be the time where you are influenced subconsciously about the products and services that the advertiser is pushing towards you. It's also the annoying film, if you're not subscribing to YouTube, that you have to see one or two films before you can click on the skip advert or move to next. This is push marketing, and it's also push marketing when you have an advert in a magazine, because it would be almost impossible to imagine that you read through a magazine and then you don't see the adverts at all. I think for marketing we have to understand that most people don't like to be interrupted with something like marketing. Especially the marketing that comes while you're watching a fantastic movie, and then you have to see about diapers and pharmaceuticals or whatever kind of products that are pushed into your head. Then you sometimes just avoid these channels, which is also why you have ad blockers on both the internet and also on your Flow TV, because people don't want to see adverts. So we have to remember that every time we do advertising or marketing, we have to understand that this is something that for the most is something that intrudes in people's lives where they don't really want it. That goes for push marketing. Pull marketing is a little bit different, but I will get back to that in a second as well. So if you use push marketing, and most marketing people in the industry for the most see push marketing as something valuable. That's why they talk about conversions and clicks and views. And yes, of course, it's important that somebody watches your message when you are trying to push information into their heads. Because if nobody watches anything that requires some kind of action right now, there will be no action. But the question is, of course, is that the right way to market your product and service? And that we will also revert to in a second. So let's look at push marketing and why it's effective. Push marketing is effective because we have got used to it. When we drive on the highway, we see billboards. That's also push marketing, because if you're in a queue on a highway, it's a little bit difficult to avoid that huge signage in front of you with even if it's the most stupid ads that you see, 1-800 law firm or whatever, or if you are injured, call me, and I mean, these kind of adverts, or go to the nearest supermarket, it was the previous exit. I mean, those kind of things is a little bit, let's say, you may not want them, but they probably subconsciously influences you on which adverts you have seen, and that indirectly and directly influences maybe your choices of products and services that you invest in when you start buying. So why is it different when you look at B2B market? When you sell something in a B2B environment and that has a price tag, a significant price tag, then you will often see that decision process and the review process and the description of requirements process and negotiation process can last anywhere from a few months to sometimes even a few years, depending on how important, how expensive, and how significant an impact the product have on you. In a B2B market, you have to take into considerations, as I already said, about the selling cycle. And I'm not sure that everybody understands what a selling cycle is. Of course you understand what it is, but let me just explain for at least having let's say the same perspective of what we're talking about. You have a funnel, and that funnel is basically where all your leads go into. It's called in professional terms an MQL, marketing qualified lead, and that essentially means that a customer has an intent to buy and has the ability to buy. So basically, this is where your leads that are qualified for buying a CapEx investment, in this case, goes into. So in a B2B marketing space, you basically need to be sure that of course people get the information they need at the time where they need it, because they are not reacting the same way as a B2C. It's not that you see an advert for an expensive printing press and then you just call your press supplier and then you buy it. There's a long process, and that's the selling cycle. You go through typically that you have meetings, you have clarification process, then you have negotiation prices process, then you come to the actual contracting, and then you get to from you have contracted to when do you get the delivery, and when have you signed off, when you have paid, then you have training, and that period of time is the total time of sales, because the sale is only complete when the customer is given a sign off of the equipment. When we talk about pull marketing here, is basically that all the things that can help a customer to qualify a decision is not only marketing in traditional sense, that buy this and we give you this. No, it's also like education stuff. It's like the case studies that we do, that is Inkish's core business. We call them perspective, but they're essentially case studies. These films and these assets are made to support a customer in his decision process. So let's say that, okay, you have a 5-color B1 40-inch machine today, and it's 12 years old, and now you're considering upgrading the machine to something else. In that process, okay, you have to look, okay, should I go analog, should I go digital? Do I need the fastest machine in the market? Should I buy a new machine? Should I buy a second-hand machine? Do I need the same number of printing units, or would it be more sane to look into a perfection press? All these kind of decisions is basically marketing assets that the printing customer can pull from a repository of assets available to him at a given time. That is what Inkish has always been about, and that's why we have always said that the numbers, when you look at how many watches are filmed the first week, yes, we disclose that, but it has no value, to be honest. The real value is when you use the assets as part of your education process, when you get into a situation. Of course, the branding is different. Of course, the branding is important, that you have tens of thousands watching a film, obviously. But when it comes to the actual sales, it's a pull asset that you use in your going forward with the customer. The customer say to you, so am I the first one that buy this? No, here is an example of a customer that bought this a year ago, and you can listen to what they said. Okay, great. So why should I have a little bit larger format than the standard 40-inch, for example? Oh, here's a film about why you should do that. And here is, by the way, also a brochure, because our new folding device can handle that, and therefore you can utilize the sheet 30% more than you could if it was not blah, 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 right? So you get my point. This is like an educational process where the vendors basically put up a repository of the reasons and answering the questions. And I would say that, and that has obviously always been the way that we see it, is as unbiased as possible. Everything that mentions a specific name is marketing per definition. It's a branding kind of thing. So, of course, when we say that we are not making advertising, that is yes and no, because every time you mention a brand, it is kind of advertising. But we're not endorsing something specifically, because, I always say to people that is kind of odd if I should recommend a printing press because I don't know the printing presses. I know a little bit about Komori and about Koenig Bauer and Manroland and Heidelberg and RMGT, just to mention the 5 major in this example, right? But when the day is over, I don't know whether one is a better fit for you or somebody else. But the printers that have bought these machines probably know. So if you look at testimonials or case studies from each of these, from customers from each of these OEMs, I think you will be able to get a pretty good understanding of which machines fits the bill for what you want to achieve with your printing company. And if you're the first one and the first mover in it, then it's because you tried that before, or you have decided that, okay, the advantages of this machine are simply overwhelming, and therefore I take the risk because I think it's important. And therefore that becomes very important for us to hear your story and get that out, because now you become the one that people will lean towards, right? So I hope you understand the difference between the push marketing is something that a little bit in your face, and pull marketing is a little bit more of a resource library where you can basically find the assets that you need when you need it. For the OEMs that are using services like Inkish and also some of our competitors and colleagues, you basically, one thing is that you should have obviously put it on your website so it's easy to find and have that repository I just spoke about, and also use it as part of your branding to show the relationship you have with the customer. But what is also important is that your salespeople are totally aware of which assets they have at their disposal and how that can be used. I would say that if you are marketing and you need to generate leads for your, as we spoke about yesterday, you need to generate these leads. Basically, be sure that your salespeople, all of them, understand the value of pull marketing, and let them also share. So let's say when they go through the list of potential customers, they know, this asset could be great to send to that customer. So basically that person can start preparing himself a little bit, because I'm going to call him in a couple of weeks, and then he at least has a certain level of knowledge if you could convince him to watch the film that we have done together. So pull marketing, push marketing, 2 very important things, and both of them are important in the industry, but it's just to understand the difference in when they are very, very important. And I'm not saying that you can say that, okay, then we only do push marketing or we only do pull marketing. You have probably to do both, but if you are in a segment where you're selling machines or a little bit more expensive products, then go for the pull marketing 100%, because nobody buys a machine because they have seen an advert with a nice photo, or because they have seen a 20 seconds video on Instagram or wherever your marketing people think it's relevant to meet your customers, which is a topic we will discuss in a future episode. So I hope you enjoyed this little presentation, and see you next time.